crew, Ms. Leja. So we're going to start with Wonders Unit 5, Week 2. And the essential question for today is, how do shared experiences help people adapt to change? And I think it's really actually a good question that we're going through right now. We are experiencing something that we have not experienced before. And so this shared experience, everyone is going through it. The whole world is going through it. And it is helping us to kind of see different things about our world, and we are all coming together to help each other. Closing schools wasn't, like I said on Friday, it wasn't something that was being done to promote panic. It was something being done to help, and so we are all coming together in more ways than one to help evoke change. But more historical, what we are talking about this week is through thick and thin. So, when times get tough, people have to rely on each other to help them adapt to changing situations. Even small gestures can help. So, things like during the Great Depression, many businesses closed, causing widespread unemployment. And in cities like this one shown in our Wonders book, supportive groups gave unemployed people free soup, coffee, donuts as they waited for work. The shared meal helped them feel not so alone. And I think all over the world right now we're doing that to help each other through, food banks and through even, the government helping those small businesses in need. We are going through that right now. So it's really important that we know that this is a continual thing. Through these experiences, people do come together, and it's amazing. A lot of you have the vocabulary for this week, which is right here. So we have assume, okay? When you assume something, you take it for granted, or you suppose that it is so. So we assume that we would be going to school today when we aren't. So assume. We are also, another vocabulary word is to guarantee. So to guarantee is to be sure of something. I guarantee that I will do the best that I can to make these videos and to help educate you from home. So guarantee, to be sure of something. I'm going to guarantee that I will be here for anything that you need. Our next one is nominate. So if you nominate someone, you suggest or propose that the person should be chosen for something. So the country came together and nominated our president. Every 4 years, they nominate our president. If something the next one is obviously. So if something is done obviously, it is easily chosen or seen or understood. So obviously right now we are working through some differences. I have never taught through a webcam before, and you have never most likely learned through one for an extended period of time. So obviously we are going through different changes. It can be seen through that. The next one is to rely. Rely is to trust or depend on someone. So you all are going to rely on me to give you your a daily video, a daily ounce of education, which I am here to give to you. The next one is supportive. When you are supportive, you provide approval. You support someone. You are giving them your encouragement. So you are all being supportive of me working through this. I am new to these videos, and I'm not usually a video person, and hopefully through your support and being supportive of that will help me feel more comfortable. The next one is sympathy. So sympathy meaning you feel like you understand their troubles. All of us right now are feeling sympathy for one another. We all understand what we're going through. We haven't gone through this, and so to be sympathetic towards people and have that sympathy is really important. And weakling. A weakling is a person who lacks physical strength. So weakling, and it doesn't even have to be physical, but weakling, you're lacking that strength. Okay, so those are our vocabulary words. I'm going to go through our shared read with the genre of historical fiction. Now, we all know what historical means and we all know what fiction means. So, as we come together, we can kind of understand that historical fiction features events that are typical during a historical time period, but fiction meaning that it isn't necessarily true. So we are looking at historical fictions, things that may have been going on in the past, but they include some non-real situations. So the story for today is the day the Rolettes got their moxie back. So read about how a family comes together during a period of great hardship in the United States. Okay. Sometimes the thing that gets you through hard times comes like a bolt from the blue. That's why my older brother's letter was like traveling across the country from a work camp in Wyoming. It was 1937, and Ricky was helping to build facilities for a new state park as part of President Roosevelt's employment program. Though the program created jobs for young men like Ricky, it hadn't helped our dad find work yet. I imagine Ricky looking up at the snow-capped mountains and sparkling skies, breathing in the smell of evergreens as his work crew turned trees into lumber and lumber into buildings. It almost made an 11-year-old weakling like me want to become a lumberjack. Weakling, remember, our vocabulary word, meaning not as strong. So we are talking about an 11-year-old, and she doesn't feel like she's strong, but it made her feel as though she wanted to become. Back in our New York City apartment, the air smelled like meatloaf and cabbage. Dad sat slantwise in his chair by the window, obviously trying to catch the last rays of sunlight rather than turn on a light. Our vocabulary word, obviously, meaning being able to see. So, seeing that he was trying to catch the last rays of sunlight rather than turn on a light. My older sister Ruth and I lay on the floor comparing the letters Ricky had sent to us. Surely, Ricky says that they had a talent show and he wore a grass skirt and did a hula dance while playing the ukulele, Ruth reported with delight. I'll bet he was the cat's pajamas. It'd be swell to have our own talent show, I replied. Should I start sewing grass skirts? Mom asked from the kitchen, which was just the corner where someone had plopped down a stove next to a sink and an icebox. Now, come set the table. Dinner is almost ready. Dad stayed where he was, sullen and spent. Any jobs in the paper? Asked Mom, her voice rich with sympathy. Remember, sympathy meaning feel like you know how they feel, or that you want to know how they feel. Dad shook his head no. He had worked as an artist in the theater for years, but most productions were still strapped for cash. Dad sketched posters up for shows that did get the green light just to keep his skills sharp. He even designed posters for Rolette's Follies with Ruth and me depicted in watercolor costumes. For dinner, Mom served a baked loaf of whatever ingredients she had that worked well together. From the reddish color, I could assume that she had snuck in beets. Remember, assuming mean you're thinking of that thing. I guarantee you'll like these beets, she said, reading my frown. Guarantee our vocab word as well, meaning I can promise you or I can assure you. You'll like these beets, she said, reading from my frown. It's beet loaf, the meatless meatloaf, she sang as she served up slices. Ruth fidgeted in her seat, still excited about the talent show. Though calm on the outside, inside, I was all at Twitter too. Over the next week, Ruth and I practiced our Hawaiian dance routine. Our parents worried about heating bills as cold weather set in. One Saturday, my father decided to grin and bear it and grab some hot coffee at the local soup kitchen where he hoped to hear about available jobs. Ruth and I begged to go along, since the kitchen offered donuts and hot chocolate on weekends. He agreed. Most everyone in line was bundled up against the cold. Many of us had to rely on 2 or 3 threadbare layers. Rely, a vocab word meaning they had to use, they couldn't go anywhere for anything else. Like many other men, Dad bowed his head as if in shame. The line moved slowly. Bored, Ruth began practicing her dance steps. I sang an upbeat tune to give her some music. Around us, downturned hats lifted to reveal frowns becoming smiles. Soon, folks began clapping along. Egged on only by the supportive response, Ruth twirled and swayed like there was no tomorrow. Supportive, meaning people were giving them that praise and it helped them feel confident. "Those girls sure have moxie," someone shouted. "They've got heart all right," offered another. "Why, they ought to be in pictures." With performances like that, I'd nominate them for an Academy Award. Last vocab word, nominate, meaning I would vote for them. A woman called out, "Those are my girls," Dad declared, his head held high. Everyone burst into applause. For those short moments, the past didn't matter and the future blossomed ahead of us, like a beautiful flower. I couldn't wait to write Ricky and tell him the news. So this story really focuses on that essential question for the week. How can people come together to help each other through hard times? This story is set in the historical time of the Great Depression. It is fiction because these people aren't real that are in the story, but they went through real things, which is why it's called historical fiction. They went through the Great Depression. They went through worrying about paying for the heating bill and putting food on the table and things like that. But Ruth and her sister all came together and they started dancing, and they made light of a really hard situation, and everyone around them saw it and they noticed it and they were happy for a moment. They said at the end that for those short moments the past didn't matter and the future blossomed ahead of us like a beautiful flower. That simile, like a beautiful flower, helps them to kind of, stop for a moment and think about, okay, there are some good things that we can do to help make our country or our city and just our community feel better. Okay, so the skill for this week is to compare and contrast. Like we worked on last week, we could compare the beginnings and endings of stories to help us better understand. So if I were to compare the beginning of this story to the end, I would compare it as, well, we still have the same family, we still have the same community, and we still have the Great Depression. None of that changed from beginning to end of our story. But what did change was the outlook of it. Okay, at the beginning, her father was sullen, and he shook his head, and he was tired, and he just seemed sad. And then contrasting that to the end, he makes a comment saying, "Those are my girls," Dad declared, his head held high. His mood had changed from the beginning to the end, all based on one dance. That's amazing. Same with the girls. At the beginning of the story, they just had this dream of having a talent show and, like her brother did and all of that good stuff. And then at the end, they made that dream a reality. They changed that. They went out and they just started dancing. They were bored and they didn't think much of it, but then it became something that their community could come together to work through. Okay? So that is that comparing and contrasting, that skill that we all need to use to help us better understand stories. There are a lot of similarities and differences, and if you go through these videos as I continue to work through them, you can pause the videos, okay? One kind of thing that I want you to work on is pausing those videos, thinking about, okay, how have things changed, especially for this video? How have they changed from beginning to end, and how have they stayed the same? Okay? You know what? That's all I'm going to work through for this video. So we went through our essential question, we went through our vocab, we read the story again, reiterating that vocab, and then we talked about that skill of comparing and contrasting and how I would compare it and contrast it. Like I said, after each video or during each video, I want you to pause it and think. Okay, I want you to still become those lifelong learners. And I am going to next read a historical fiction story, Woodpeckers. It'll just be used as like a little read aloud if you choose to listen to it. I'll stop, I'll talk, and we'll walk through it together. All right? I'll see you next time.